Holly, you're all set? You have your choice. Wherever you want. You can come up the steps as you wish. Wherever you're most comfortable. Yeah, I didn't know either. Is that crazy loud?
We were driving all around. Baseline Road is closed?
Yeah, by Cherryvale.
It is very loud.
That is really loud. I will speak softly. Well, they're using this one. So.
Mine is also very loud. Should I go turn everything down before we start?
No. Andrew can. I'll be off in a second. Well, friends, Shabbat Shalom. It's good to be with you. Since last Shabbat, I feel like there's a whole nother layer of heaviness that's for us after the hostage taking in Texas. And there's a lot of people I know who feel conflicted and challenged, and what do we do, and how do we continue on? And I guess the answer for us is that we continue on. And I know that we have lots of friends who are joining us online in these cameras of ours, and we're glad, but one of the ways we're continuing on is by having women of Har HaShem and a number of our friends help lead the service. There was a minute where I was thinking, maybe should we do something different? Do we need to postpone? But the truth is, I think we need to continue to show up. We'll share, we'll talk, we'll be able to find times to figure out how we're feeling and confront the issues of anti-Semitism in our world and our communities. But we're always going to journey forward. And I think that's what is going to make this night, this Shabbat, with all of these folks who are going to be sharing their prayers, their wisdom, their service leading with us. And it's going to be the sweet Shabbat that, at least for me, is exactly what I need. So I'm glad to have our friends from Women of Har HaShem going to take turns and lead us. We're going to continue with our prayers. If you have a prayer book at home or in the sanctuary, and you see a Shabbat on the spine of the text, you'll see two different page numbers. You're going to follow along the page number in blue brackets. If you have a nice, thick, heavy book, then you only have one page number to follow. It'll be easy to follow along. So whether you're following along online, on the flip book, if you have a book at home, or if you have one of our Mishkan Tefillah prayer books, and there are two page numbers, follow the page number in blue brackets. And as we begin, I'm going to say, take a breath. Make a transition. Our Boulder County community and Jewish community has been through a lot this year. And just when we move into 2022, we're ready to celebrate and have another kind of experience, and there's a heaviness still. So let's share our strength with one another. Let's give each other hope. Let's help one another find your inner prophet to lift up hope for everybody. Let's begin.
Page 128.
We sing Hine Matov Umanayim. It is sweet and important and joyful and good to be together on this day. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad.
So I just had cataract surgery and I'm still navigating how I see things. So these will be going up and down. So my name is Sherry Feinbaum. I'm the president of Women of Har HaShem. And I just wanted to welcome everyone to our Shabbat service tonight. You know, I was thinking about this today. The last time we did our Women of Har HaShem service was on March 6th, 2020, the week before the world shut down. And you know, we were talking about the service and planning it. We wanted the theme to be coming out of the darkness, but it seems we're not quite there yet. So we're getting there. So I was thinking about what I wanted to say tonight and all the events of the last week and thinking about how we hear Torah and how we show up in the world. And for Women of Har HaShem, we always look at seeing the light. And I think 2 years ago I talked about that. Seeing the light in times of darkness and, you know, how we live in this continual state of arrival and being challenged to hear God's word. So I'm really happy that we're here together tonight to have Women of Har HaShem lead this service and praying together in community. So welcome, everyone.
Sherry, I'm going to invite you and Helene to come and light the candles. We're on page 120. Page 120. Speaking of light, let's bring some.
I also had cataracts. We're both like,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you, leaders. It's beautiful. Page 123, please stand as you are able. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta ve'tanu kidashta mikol hamim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'ratzon hinechaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Chaim. This is the awkward part. Let's continue. Please be seated. And let's continue. You're not going to do this part? Let's continue on pages 128 and 129. The Chadodi, the prayer of our mystics, the prayer that each verse helps us get higher and higher until we're ready to stand. We'll sing verses 1 through 5, and then we skip to verse 9. And it's customary to stand and welcome the Sabbath bride. And I joke that we loved it so much we married it, that we are Shabbat's partners. And so we stand, we often face, a door, but we're just going to face openness and greet Shabbat and welcome in Shabbat so that we can really be in partnership with that peace and love together. (128) and 129. I'm sorry, 138 and 139. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai, ya lai la 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 la, ya lai la lai 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 la lai, ya lai la 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 la, ya lai la lai 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 la lai, ya lai la 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 la. Ya lai la lai 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 la lai, ya lai la 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 la. Lecha dodi likrat kava, v'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kava, v'nei Shabbat mekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'tzipor echad, Ishmianu echad meyuchad, Adonai echad, Shmo echad, L'shem tiveret v'litila, L'echad dodi likrat kava, v'nei Shabbat mekabela. L'echad dodi likrat kava, v'nei Shabbat mekabela. Likrat Shabbat Lecho v'necha ki mekor ha'beracha merosh mikedem nesucha sef ma'aser le'machshavat chila lecha dodi likrat kava v'nei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kava v'nei Shabbat mekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha tumitzei mitocha hafecha v'avlach sheret be'mekabachav vehu yachamo alayichem la lecha dodi likrat Pene Shabbat Nekabela Yalalalai Lechadodi Yalalalai Lekakalo Yalalalai Pene Shabbat Pene Shabbat Nekabe Yalalalai Lechadodi Yalalalai Lekakalo Yalalalai Pene Shabbat Pene Shabbat Nekabela Ignari Me'afar Pene Vishibigde Ivatehami Al Yad Ben Yishai Beit Halachmi Korba El Nafshi Ge'ala Yai Lai Lai Yalalalai Lechadodi Yalalalai Lekakalo Yalalalai Pene Shabbat Pene Shabbat Nekabe Yalalalai Lechadodi Yalalalai Lekakalo Yalalalai Pene Shabbat Pene Shabbat Nekabela Hitoreri Hitoreri Hiva Orech Umi Ori Uri Shedaveri Kelod Adonai Alayich Nigla Yai Lai Lai Yalalalai Lechadodi Yalalalai Lekakalo Yalalalai Pene Shabbat Pene Shabbat Nekabe Yalalalai Lechadodi Yalalalai Lekakalo Yalalalai Pene Shabbat Pene Shabbat Nekabela Boi V'Shalom Ateret Bala Gam B'Simcha U'Sola Toch Emuneh Am Segula Boi Chala Boi Chala Yai Lai Lai Yalalalai Lechadodi Yalalalai Lekakalo Yalalalai Pene Shabbat Pene Shabbat Nekabe Yalalalai Lechadodi Yalalalai Lekakalo Yalalalai Pene Shabbat Pene Shabbat Nekabela.
So we're going to be on Shalom Aleichem on page 142. You know, when we sing Shalom Aleichem, I'm a fairly visual person, so I always visualize these ministering angels sent by God to accompany us into Shabbat, to bring us in peace, and it reminds me that God is always with us. And you know, I look out here in our community and think about when we all pray together. You know, we don't know who those ministering angels are, but I always feel like we're all around us, so it's always a wonderful feeling.
142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShavim, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Ni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Our next prayer will be the Baruch Hu on page 146.
We're about to recite the Baruch Hu, the call to prayer. The Baruch Hu marks a transition from individual warm-up prayers to joining our voices together as a community. It's that act of joining voices that speaks to me spiritually. While COVID separates us physically and by masks, it won't stop us from uniting in prayer.
Please stand as you're able. Ya la la, ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la, ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai. HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam, 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 Le'olam va'ed. Ya la la, ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la, ya la la la. Ya la 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 la.
This is an hour of change. Within it we stand, uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Arabim. Well, we're stuck, sorry. As modern people, we often, consciously or not, behave as if we control our universe. After all, we live in a technologically advanced world. Humans created electricity, which allows us to light up our homes at night, air conditioning to cool us when we're overheated, and heating to warm us when we're cold. We are connected by the internet. Information is at our fingertips. Communication around the world instant. We indeed believe and act as if we were the masters of our universe. The opening paragraph of the Ma'ariv Arabim, or evening prayer, reminds us that the forces of nature are indeed beyond our control. These forces control the rising and setting of the sun, allows the stars and the moon to appear, and recognizes that there is a distinction between the times of light and the times of darkness. On December 30th, we all became aware just how precarious our lives are, how helpless we are in the face of the natural forces of our world. We can no longer artificially turn the night to day, warm ourselves, or summon the internet to do our bidding. For good or bad, we have to accept and be humbled by our human limitations and bless God's wisdom that arranges the stars and creates day and night.
Beautiful. Daisy, you can come on up. We're going to continue soon with Shema on 152 and 153.
They don't have to stand, right?
They do? Okay. About 15 years ago, I was in Spain with my son, and we were in the Cathedral of Toledo, and the tour guide was explaining the history of coexistence amongst the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians in Spain before the Inquisition. I mentioned to him that I'm a Sephardic Jew. My family are descendants of the Inquisition. And he said, "Oh yeah? If you're Jewish, read that." And he pointed to the ceiling. David and I looked up, and we started reading Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu. It was the Shema. Right next to that was an Arabic prayer, and right next to that was a Christian prayer in Spanish. God is one in any language. Please join me in the Shema, followed by the Ve'ahavta. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated. Ve'ahavta is on 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננת לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות להם לאלוהים. אני אדוני לאלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Thank you. Page 157.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. and that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. What a poem this is to be met with for Dr. King's birthday. Two peoples with a history of their own, each one replete with persecution and unimaginable suffering. Each people devotedly reaching for and finding, century after century, hope and joy, and in time, great empathy, compassion, and care for the other. With much dedication, we can take each other by the hand with open minds and loving hearts and rebuild one community of two. And I, personally, am very ready for this.
Amen. We'll continue in a moment with Mi Chamocha on page 158. This prayer on 158, this prayer of redemption, Rosalie's going to go get her words, but this is a prayer of moving from one place into another, from a place of narrow darkness, God willing, into a place of light, an action that sometimes takes a lifetime, and sometimes we have over the course of a day, God willing, multiple times that we feel moving from that dark place into a place of light, and we remember that we were redeemed.
We need this first? Okay. Relating to Mi Chamocha, the time of redemption, at this time I can't imagine a more appropriate reference to Mi Chamocha than the redemption we seek after the losses sustained in the Boulder County fire. We are thankful to God for the very limited loss of life from the tragedy, and praise God for delivering the kindness and resources that are available to help our neighbors rebuild. To me, Mi Chamocha represents the hope that as the community rebuilds, we will have an even closer connection to our neighbors and will be a stronger community based on our shared experience and recovery.
Amen. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Mi Chamocha ba'elim ha'Adonai. Mi Chamocha deraba kodesh. Mi Chamocha ba'elim ha'Adonai. Mi Chamocha deraba kodesh. No right tehilot, oh Seifana. No right tehilot, oh Seifana. Adonai, imloch le'olam. Malchutecha u'vadecha, lokei al yam lifnei Moshe. Ze'eli anu ve'amru, Ze'eli anu ve'amru. Adonai, imloch le'olam. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha deraba kodesh. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha deraba kodesh. Beautiful. Hashkivenu on page 160.
How do you want to start? Should I just read? In these troubled times, the very idea of resting safely in peace
seems difficult. So we turn to God to soothe us, comfort us, and bring us a quiet mind and heart. We can only recognize the good after passing through the bad. We've had enough of the bad. Let's focus on making good happen for all. Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. 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 Let's continue with the Amidah. Starting on page 164, I'll ask you to stand as you're able. Page 164 and the right-hand side pages to follow. We begin with these words that ask God to really help us pray, help us find the words and have our heart really hear what our mouths are saying and what our yearnings are. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tifta. Ya la 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 Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tifta. Ya la 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 Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tifta. Ya la 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 Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanara El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי האבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות ומידו מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. You can be seated. And we're going to talk about Modim Anachnu Lach, a prayer on page 176.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Modim Anachnu Lach is a central prayer in our Jewish tradition and is based on gratitude. In reciting it, we are giving thanks to God for our lives, our souls, and for God's miracles, wonders, and good deeds. How do you connect to God? How do you express your gratitude? Do you recite this prayer 3 to 4 times per day as is tradition? Do you have your own prayers, your own personal ritual? This is all very personal for each one of us. For me, personally, on my journey of growth and spiritual awakening, I've learned to surrender to God and fully trust in God. I've realized there is more out of my control and that our belief we are control is just an illusion. There is something much bigger than us, surrounding us, within us, and whether that is God or the universe or source or whatever you believe in, as much as we may struggle, and we have, there is so much to be grateful for. There is beauty all around us. Let us open our eyes, our hearts, our souls to witness all the miracles that occur throughout our day in the rising of the glorious sun, the majestic mountains we are blessed to view, the energy we feel being with friends, the joy we experience being with family, the peace in doing something self-nurturing, the overflowing of love for ourselves and others, for tzedakah, and for so much more. Let us all take a moment to think of what we're grateful for, and let's give thanks to God together.
Amen. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lahodot. We continue with Shalom Rav on page 178.
I was asked to talk about what the Shalom Rav prayer means to me. To be honest, I never really thought of it at this level. When we come to this prayer, the melody and Holly's beautiful singing always just make me feel good. When I delved a little deeper, the 2 translations actually evoke 2 different types of peace for me. I feel the traditional translation on the right page speaks to me of a personal peace, that I will find peace in my personal decisions and actions. I feel the more modern interpretation on the left page is more about a worldwide peace that we can strive for, where all people and all nations will get along. So for me, I guess this prayer covers hope for peace in all its forms.
Shalom Rav 178. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Ki atahu melech adom, lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adom, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. V'tov b'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol et v'chol shah bishlomecha. Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Let's take a moment for our own prayer, our own breath, our own reflection on these incredibly meaningful and beautiful words we've heard tonight. When you can also look on page 180, 191, but we'll continue in a moment with Oseh Shalom on the bottom of page 180. Oseh Shalom b'imravav. Oseh Shalom b'imravav. Hu yaseh shalom. Hu yaseh shalom. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down.
But we can't just wait for God to make the peace. We have to be the ones who help bring it down too. I think it's a partnership. And that's what I've been hearing a lot from all of you in these beautiful, meaningful kavanot that are being shared. How do we play a part, not just for me, but how do we play a part together in bringing peace, in making peace, in bringing comfort, in showing up? And how do we connect that to a sense of God's presence? We do the same thing now. Because after these prayers for peace, we move to a prayer for healing, a healing of body, a healing of soul, an emotional healing, a physical healing. And there's so many who need that right now. So, of course, we're thinking about folks who are in Colleyville, Texas. We're thinking about folks who are part of Boulder County who have been displaced and have experienced losses. Those of us who are feeling the fatigue and even the trauma of COVID this whole time, even with trauma with a small t. all of it is real, and it's heavy, but we're carrying it together. And for those that need a little bit more prayer and strength from us, we're going to share some of our strength with them tonight. If you'd like to share the name out loud of someone that you're thinking of, someone in your heart, someone on your head, someone you'd like to share, or just kind of keep it to yourselves, let's take a moment and lift up those names together, and then we'll continue with our prayer for healing. (371) in the middle of the page. Mishaberach Avotenu V'Imotenu. May the one who blessed our mothers and fathers who came before us share healing and wholeness to us, to those whose names are shared, to anybody who's feeling hurt or wounded or just a little fatigued and a little weak tonight.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And let us say Amen.
Another prayer to share. As we think about healing, there's also a sense of fear that so many are carrying right now. As in so many times throughout history, our Jewish community is surrounded by uncertainty. Unsure of what danger, what vitriol, what violence might await us in this era of rising anti-Semitism, we call upon you, God, to be our partner. When we face enmity, fill our hearts and those of our detractors with love. When we meet bigotry, puncture the ignorance surrounding us with truth. When we see only short-sightedness, open the eyes of the blind. When fear overcomes us, show us the light of courage. When we feel alone, find us hands to soothe us. When we seek to turn inward, find us partners with whom to stand in solidarity. We stand in the footsteps of our ancestor Bruria, praying not that the wicked will disappear, but rather that their wickedness will. Let those inclined to hate question their intolerance, break their fanaticism, and burst open their narrow-mindedness. Guide our leaders to speak out, our law enforcement to stand firm, our judges to rule justly. Let all those who profess faith walk with us along this unsteady and rocky path, and let us, in turn, walk with them along theirs. We are a people blessed with perseverance, boldness, fortitude. Help us to tap into those virtues. All darkness will disappear when we join our light with the lights of others. May this happen speedily in our day, so that we, along with all of humanity, find our place, each under our vine and fig tree, and none of us shall be afraid. Amen. Your turn.
All right.
There you go.
Good evening and let me say, Shabbat Shalom. I'm Cheryl Marty, and as a member of the Women of Har HaShem, I'm here to share my thoughts with you this evening and hope they have relevance to the congregation, inclusive of all genders and experiences. I come before you tonight with a little bit of trepidation. You see, I'm new to the tribe. And so I'm here to share with you the Torah portion this evening, which has some importance to me. In this week's Torah portion, Moses and the Israelites have escaped from Egypt and come to Midian, where Yitro, as the religious leader of his people and the father-in-law of Moses, shares his awe of how Moses challenged Pharaoh and helped the Israelites escape from Egypt. This section is important because Yitro advises Moses on how to mediate disputes among the people through a network of trusted Israelite leaders to help Moses reserve his energy for the more important and critical disputes that arise. This forms the basis for early Jewish legal system. This section is important, but I think the more important part is the covenant God makes with the Jews and the 10 mitzvot, or sacred obligations, that form the foundation of how to meet that commitment. This segment of the Torah had fundamental importance to me, had fundamental importance to the Israelites and has great significance for me personally along my journey and study of Judaism. I have had very good teachers along my journey, and I was very fortunate when I first came to Colorado to study under a rabbi in Fort Collins who was a demanding teacher and a scholar, both of which I needed. In his Torah study class, when we came to the study and discussion of the covenant between God and the Jews and the 10 initial mitzvot handed down at Sinai, I became concerned about how all the human challenges we navigate fit with those 10 sacred obligations. And then the rabbi pointed out that there were really 613 mitzvot in the Torah. At that point, I was feeling quite overwhelmed. As I prepared for this and considered this portion, I tried to imagine just what it was like and would have been for those Israelites at that moment, at that time, at the foot of Mount Sinai. The Jews left Israel after living as slaves where everything was dictated to them with few choices to make. They lived through the plagues, followed Moses through a narrow passage in the water with Pharaoh's soldiers behind them, and had traveled 3 months at that point in the desert with no road signs or pathway. They arrive at the foot of a mountain where Adonai makes a covenant with the Jewish people, manifested in thunder and lightning and volcanic fire and screeching winds. And then they receive the 10 mitzvot as a test for the Israelites' commitment to their part of the contract with God. And here I feel overwhelmed once again by the study of these principles to live by from the Torah. In response to my confusion at this point, the rabbi shared a story, as rabbis are wont to do. The story told about Rabbi Hillel the Elder, who was the chief spiritual leader of the Jewish people in Jerusalem from 30 BCE to 10 of the Common Era. The story tells of a convert who came to Hillel, the teacher, and challenged the rabbi to tell him the whole Torah
while the convert stood on one foot. All I could think of was, that guy really has a lot of chutzpah. Hillel the elder's response was, "That which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. That is the whole Torah. The rest is the explanation. Go and learn." This is also known by some as the Golden Rule or the ethic of reciprocity. Ironically, my teacher, his first name was Hillel also, and his recounting of this story made so much sense to me and really helped me in my approach to study of the mitzvot, the first 10 and the remaining to the total of 613, and certainly has helped me on my journey as a Jew by choice. We fast forward to the past few years with all the falsehoods, controversy, violence, and bigotry, and then on top of that, the scourge of COVID-19. Last Friday, Rabbi Green challenged us to stand with communities of color to fight racism and support civil rights, not just for MLK Day. And then last Saturday, the Jewish congregation in Colleyville, Texas, was terrorized through Shabbat services by the taking of 4 congregants as hostages for 11 hours. A cowardly, violent, and life-threatening act of anti-Semitism. Last Wednesday night, more than 1,000 politicians, faith community leaders, Jews, and other Coloradans gathered on Zoom to support Congregation Beth Israel and to denounce anti-Semitism and violence in places of worship, which is exactly what Rabbi was talking about here tonight. So, how do we interact with people in everyday life who espouse hurtful and dangerous views? Perhaps in such cases, it's asserting Hillel the Elder's statement to the convert. We know from experience that arguing with someone that my view is better than your view just doesn't work. However, it seems so simple but so powerful to ask a reasonable person, do you want to be treated in a disrespectful, hurtful, or violent manner? If not, then do not treat others as you would not like to be treated yourself. In the real world, we need to voice this question loudly and repeatedly whenever possible. In raising that question, all the other mitzvot delineate the specifics of how to treat each other in an ethic of reciprocity. As the modern Hillel that I studied under paraphrased it, you follow the Golden Rule, and all other mitzvot is just commentary. In closing, I ask you to do 2 things. First, think about the sacred obligations delineated in the Torah, and to ask yourself, how can I make my voice heard? I thank you for letting me share my journey with you tonight. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Beautiful. Soon we will continue with Aleinu on the bottom paragraph of page 586. But first we'll hear.
Shabbat Shalom. To me, Aleinu, which means it is on us, is like a thank you note to God combined with a promise to take responsibility. It reminds me of how Nishan had to walk into the Red Sea up to his neck before God parted the water. In the same way, we must trust that God will be with us and take the first steps together. It is a communal responsibility that begins with praising God in this very moment and continues when we leave, that each of us will do what we can to make the world better.
Please stand as you're able. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpechot ha'adama, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונה. ואנחנו גורעים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. 588. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ודעת היום, והשב אותה אל לבביך. כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, והארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. You may be seated.
Zichronam levracha. May their memories be for a blessing. If you are observing a yahrzeit or in a period of mourning, and if you would like to share the name of the one whom you are remembering out loud with us, we invite you to rise for a moment, share their names with us, and we'll take all of them in. We'll share additional names from the community, but when we stand together, part of that process isn't just the praises to God, but by surrounding you folks, it also holds you up. We also remember, in the period of Shloshim, those first 30 days, we remember Agnes King, the grandmother of Mistia Zuckerman. We remember Mark Reed, one of the members of our community and the partner of Judy Richtel. Sharon Ferguson, the sister-in-law of Joel Roshbaum. Marcy Abrams Goldhammer, the mother of Jess Lowery. Those yahrzeits that we recall for this week that has passed, we remember Morris Horwitz, Bernice Simon, Leon Ariel Hendricks, Ethel Klutznick, Hai Soifer, Fanny Kellner, Dorothy Glenn, Alec Brown, Pauline Phillips, Moshe Gabriel Calderon, Anna Gail Schaefer, Lucille Smolins, Charles Hablow, Joel Taxman, Barbara Kaplan, Stephen Ross, Bunny Jackson, Helen Eliana Abrams, Matilda Kahn, Noah Rosenblum, Ray Kassoff, Roberta Galloway, Aaron Igerson, Florence Gesundheit, Randolph Traeger, Dorothy Wollens-Block, Gussie Levine, and Jason Corey Strauss. Kaddish is on page 598. Again, we invite you all to rise if you are able. If that is your custom, we would join along with us. 598. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'almad yivrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'vizman karev v'meru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mivarach Leolam Olamei Almaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitrumam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei D'Kudusha, Berichu, Le'elam in Kol Berchata V'shirata, Tush Berchata V'nechemata, Da'miran Be'alma, V'miru, Amin. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'miru, Amin. Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, V'miru, Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comfort to the bereaved here, to the people who are hurting everywhere. Let's all say Amen. You can return to your seats. A couple of quick things. First of all, I would just want to point out I see a couple of our board members, so Daisy, if you would say hi, and Sherry, if you'd raise your hand, and Gary is over there too. Did I miss anyone? If I know that there's a few people who are visiting, and if you have any questions, any of us would be glad to say hi and meet you and tell you about the synagogue. It's hard to recognize everybody with the mask, but I think I'm pretty good at this point. And we're just glad that you're here. Our intention is to continue to gather as safely as we can and making our connections online. So we're glad that our friends are online and folks are either streaming or watching on YouTube on their couch, probably having dinner. I'm not thinking about it. And we have some other volunteers that are sharing the screen, our live stream, in Zoom, so that there can be a little bit more of that personal connection again and a little interactions. And tonight they would have said only nice things, but on other nights I think they just take pot shots. So if you'd like to, wherever you feel safe, wherever you feel like it's time to connect online or in our sanctuary, we hope that you'll continue to do so and join us. We're doing our part to move forward. I want to share that next week, next Shabbat, there's another special kind of Shabbat. We don't usually have these different kinds of themes or connections, but for next week, our inclusion committee is working with Jewish Family Service in their Jewish Disabilities Advocates program. Throughout February, but we're kicking it off next week, throughout February is Jewish Disabilities Awareness and Inclusion Month. And the focus for our congregation and for other congregations all throughout Denver and Boulder is focusing on chronic illness. And so did I lose?
Yeah, he's fixing it.
Thanks, Andrew. So we are going to have one of our congregants, Madeline Cohen, share a little bit of her story after getting COVID in the very, very beginning and living with, Madeline's one of our long haulers, and she's going to be talking about living very differently right now. And also on Tuesday, February 1st, from 7 to 8, and it's online only, we're going to be meeting with Maggie Whittam, a re-emerging artist. She's going to share her story of illness and identity after surviving a brainstem stroke at age 33. And she's going to talk about how we can support others who are living with chronic pain. It's something we don't talk about. And our congregation has been trying to lift up lots of different conversations that need to be talked about. So we hope that you'll join us. We hope that you'll learn. And I also just want to say thank you again for you women who led our service and shared your prayers. We're really grateful, and they were very moving, and we thank you. We'll have a closing prayer, and I hope and I pray that one of the ways we get to respond to the challenges that we might be feeling inside about this anti-Semitism is to come, to show up, to not tuck our Jewish stars inside the shirt. to try and take a deep breath and help people see that there is joy and goodness and allyship and presence that we can learn from one another.
Let's look at the bottom of page 645. Liyasagoy el goy cherev. We will work together to create and live in peace. We start with the word Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev. Lo yimedu od milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev. Lo yimedu od milchama. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
We wish you a Shabbat Shalom. We're going to ask you to wish your neighbors a Shabbat Shalom. If you don't know your neighbor, please share your name. You don't have to shake hands unless you both agree, but you have to meet one person and share their name. Good Shabbos, everyone. Lovely. They all did a very nice job.